Hey everybody, welcome back to Watchworthy. I'm your co-host, Miss Chris D.
And I'm Brother Ash.
And on today's episode, we are talking all about the documentary Dolly Parton, Here I Am.
Dolly.
And you might be wondering, why are these two black kids talking about Dolly Parton? But it was just another documentary we saw on Netflix.
Fuck it, Dolly is an icon. I give respect where it's due.
Period. And so this is a documentary from 2019. Like I said, it was available on Netflix, but this actually, we were inspired to watch because it said like it was leaving soon. So you know how Netflix be, they be taking stuff off. So by the time you go watch it, it might not be on there, but check it out. And this one, I like this one because it did include a lot of, old video. I think that's the perk of being an icon like Dolly, like you said. People are documenting your career from beginning to end. So there's a whole bunch of old videos from like the 60s, 70s. And then today, of course, she's still alive. So, oh my God, what if this episode... I'm not even going to say that. I'm not even going to think
wow.
That. You know how news be coming out about Betty White and people be
like,
what happened with Betty? I hope nothing happens with Dolly Parton because we love her and this documentary made me love her more. And anything else you want to share about your love for Dolly?
I'm honestly coming into this, like I always knew who she was, but like... I'm recently kind of tapping more into country. I'm a huge hip hop dude, but I didn't know a lot about her outside, the boobs. Like, no offense, babe. Like,
no, I get it.
But like she's like the old lady with the big boobs.
Yes.
Like, I didn't know that was your thing. Like I thought she was a part of the generation that whatever. But from this documentary, I've gained a whole new respect for Dolly Parton. Obviously, I knew she was an icon, but I got to see more about her journey, and that's dope.
So we want to leave y'all with this question. Think about this as we're recapping the doc. We just want to ask, what do you best know Dolly Parton for? Is it the tits, as Josh said, Brother Ashley? Brother Ashley, the old lady tits?
No, I'm not looking at her tits.
And I understand. Dolly Parton, you can't help but to see.
Yeah, it's like the letter P walking around singing country music.
People Parton. So do you best know her for her music, her boobs, her acting?
I best know her for her music. I know that she is an icon in the country music field. Wasn't she like a judge or something on a show? Or I feel like, or she had some type of role or something. Or I don't know if it was America's Got Talent or The Voice or something.
Probably, she's probably made an appearance.
I feel like I've seen like people we grew up to, like acknowledge her as their GOAT. So I always knew. I never been a huge country guy.
Because I didn't realize how old she was. I didn't realize she's like in her 70s. She's been doing this for decades.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, let's kick it off, Brother Ash. Kick it off for us.
All right. So this documentary starts with celebrating 50 years of Dolly Parton performing at the Grand Ole Opry. All right, don't that sound like
the Grand Ole Opry.
Grand Ole Opry. Now you niggas are gonna sit up there.
We definitely was not allowed back then.
You better not drink at our fountain. But for real though, that's probably exactly what it was. She's from Tennessee, so it was some. She probably seen a lot of racism. Which is basically, this place, the Grand Ole Opry, is like the Broadway of Nashville, Tennessee. Dolly quoted saying, "I'm a songwriter first. It's my way of expressing myself. It's my therapy. There are pieces of me in everything I write." And that is something that I love. Yeah. As a creative, like, I truly love to tell my story because it's just like, people are never going to forget this stage of my life as Brother Ash. Right. So when she said that, I immediately like kind of locked in and like kind of got interested in this documentary because that quote was something that I definitely resonate with.
That actually was a learning moment for me. I didn't know that Dolly Parton like was such a songwriter. Yeah. So we'll learn, later as we talk about. She's written like thousands of songs. Yeah.
So and really important songs too that we'll touch on. So early life for Dolly. Dolly Rebecca Parton was born on January 19th. I think that's like Aquarius season or something. Yeah. She's an Aquarius maybe. I don't know. 1946 near the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee.
So she was right in the mountain peak. Dolly seems not racist.
Yeah, it's always hard to tell though. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to tell.
You think Dolly's racist? Keep going.
I don't think she is. I'm just saying. That's just a little background about where she's from.
Oh my God.
So she was the fourth in a family of 12 children and needed a lot of attention. So I grew up with like just 2 siblings.
Listen, I cannot have 12 siblings. No.
And really just like I grew up with one of my siblings, my other sibling. my brother that I just mentioned, he was 10 years older than us. So me and Kamel got plenty of attention.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he got plenty of attention because he was the only child for 9 years.
But she was forced. They forgot about her ass.
But that explains her personality, because one thing I did know about Dolly Parton, you never see her without makeup. She's not one of those celebrities you see, Dolly Parton gained weight, she's out by the grocery store looking. No, she's always beat. What do they call it? Her
put
face
together.
Put together.
Well, I guess that's kind of a red flag for me. You know, on this show, we're going to try to sprinkle in red flags throughout the documentary, and I feel like that kind of is a red flag. Somebody who always needs attention, but I guess that's how we get today's celebrities. They all needed attention at some point in their lives.
In many ways, she was a blueprint, and it stemmed from having that big family. They were poor. So, she said she always wanted attention. Growing up, she didn't have the movies or TV. So
the 50s.
And you know what I'm saying? They were
In
poor.
Tennessee.
You got to feed 12 kids. You give a damn about a color TV, bitch. You go over there and write some fucking stories. So, I'm sorry. She didn't have movies or TV. So she said writing songs became like writing movies for her family, which is dope. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think that's, what stardom is all about. Somebody investing in you and saying, wow, this is dope. She was her family's entertainment. I thought that was dope.
Yeah.
Her uncle played guitar very well and took her around to his gigs. I resonated with that.
I feel like that might be a red flag, though. I don't know if a little kid should be around at these gigs, but hey.
And times were different back then. And you just got to hope that, you know how it was back then. We didn't have social media, and it just was very misogynistic. So she was a young girl traveling with her uncle. We know
I hope she was okay.
That could spell all types of disaster. But at the same time, times were different in the sense where there were still good people back then.
Yeah.
And I went to gigs with my dad, and I remember what that did for me as a musician and eventually becoming a performer artist myself. Like, that's dope, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I really felt that, and I didn't really think I would find so many similarities in Dolly Parton to Brotha Ash, but listening to her story, I was like, wow, this is dope, So her first time singing in front of a crowd was like age 10. That's really, really young. So
talent shows and everything.
Yeah, she always kind of had that personality, and, I remember her saying when she did it, she was like, oh, this is the attention that I always wanted. So it's like that feeling.
She got that little taste.
Yeah, that feeling. You don't want to give it up. You know what I'm saying? So I remember looking at she said, I remember looking at my uncle saying, I'm going to be a star, ain't I? I'm going to be a star, ain't I? Ain't I, uncle?
I can't believe, like, people who are celebrities now, they are always like, I always knew it. I always knew I was going to be a star. I said it when I was 10 years old. Like, how do you really know? But she said it.
And that was when she knew she wanted to be a singer. So, sometimes it's as simple as your uncle taking you to his gigs, you getting to perform at a talent show, and boom. Those two life-changing events were small for a lot of people, but life-changing for her, and we wouldn't have Dolly Parton without it. So
Dolly moved to Nashville when she was 18 years old. You know how everybody's like, I'm going to pack my bags, move to New York City. Well, her thing was Nashville since she was in Tennessee, and she was rough around the edges, they said. She was from the backwoods, y'all, okay? Yeah. So she was kind of crude like a guy. She was a little, rough around the edges. She would curse. Everybody was shocked that she was, like, so sweet and pretty on the outside, but she was kind of rugged on the inside.
You got to be like that, though, in the music industry. If you're a woman, you can't just be all frolicking through the meadows.
Because you'll get taken advantage.
Yeah, you got to hold your own.
And that's exactly what she said. She said that she was hungry for the dream, but she would cry herself to sleep sometimes, y'all. She would cry herself to sleep at night. So she learned how to stand up for herself in this country music industry. And she said that she actually wasn't scared as a young woman. And I like that fact because, like you said, it's easy to just be small and be meek and be scared and be like, I'm going to let the men handle it. But she stood up for her own career in this male-dominated industry. And she basically said, look, I'll either succeed or I'll fail. And that's really what it seems like with Dolly. It kind of seems straightforward. Like, those are the only two options at this point.
I love that.
She definitely didn't want to go back home to her 12 siblings. So
yeah.
She said that she really, at this time, you also have to think, like, Dolly is taken off, like we said, in the 50s, 60s. There's still not even women's rights at this time. And so she really did kind of become a feminist icon because she was one of those first women to break into music. And so she ended up getting signed to Capitol Records in 1964. They didn't really say. It all just seemed to happen so quickly, Back then, it kind of was. It was kind of just like, oh, so-and-so heard her on the street, and then they signed her. Yeah. And it was 1964, so that's how it all got started.
There was a lot less motivation to do something like this back in the day. Like, women in Dolly Parton's shoes during that time were just being encouraged to get married. Like, find a man to marry you and be a homekeeper, you know?
Yeah. Or be a secretary.
Yeah, those are her two options. So I think, like, when you really make that decision in the 50s that you want to do it, it definitely stood out. So
yeah. So then in 1966, her song "Dumb Blonde" is released, and that's her first song on the chart. So now we all know, like, once you get that one hit, you just got to figure out what works for you. You got to figure out that formula, and you got to get on the charts and stay on the charts because you will become irrelevant.
She was ahead of her time too. The name of that song sounds like something that
exactly "Dumb Blonde." Like she kind of did like touch on feminism topics a little bit in her music, but she wasn't loud and proud with it like we are today. Because she couldn't be. She had to be subtle with it back then.
Yeah.
And so that same year, 1966, this is another red flag for me, y'all. This is when Dolly got married to Carl Dean, who she said she met him at a laundromat. And I say it's a red flag because to this day, her producers, her friends, nobody's really seen Carl Dean. Only like a couple friends have actually seen him in person. So I know he's not fake, but it's given like fake husband.
My boy did it right. He pulled up on her at the laundromat and said, "I'm gonna ride these coattails. He gonna take that horse to the Old Town Road. He gonna ride till he can't no more."
Well, how would you feel if your wife was like the celebrity breadwinner and you just stayed home and your wife is Dolly Parton, like everyone around the world knows her?
Look, especially in the 60s, like that has to be, you know, rough because you're supposed to, you know, back then the man was supposed to provide. So like you got to be a special kind of guy to be able to be married to Dolly Parton. But, you know, I think that they really... Obviously, I hope that they had something special. So
it reminds me of Oprah and Stedman. Like, Oprah was the big household name, and people knew Stedman was around, but he was just like the showpiece. So Carl Dean, apparently Dolly Parton is married to this day, but nobody's really seen him in person. So that was a red flag to me. That was kind of weird. But yeah, so even the first year of her marriage, she kept that a secret. And she emphasized in the documentary that she didn't come to Nashville for a man. She came for a career. And that's on period, sis. Like, she had to remind people, oh, I'm not just, you know, the cute little blonde getting married out here. Because even today, remember, like, when Cardi B got married, when Nicki Minaj got married, they settled down and had kids. People are like, oh, your career's over. Actually, I don't think she ever had kids. They didn't mention any kids in the documentary. Yeah. But she did get married, and she still is to this day. So she said that she just tries to keep him out the public. And in 1967, Dolly touched on gender inequality again with her song, Just Because I'm a Woman. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You know, just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I can't do X, Y, Z. And I feel like, I would say this is a red flag for me, but it might not be for everybody. But it's like, you don't have a problem integrating into your song, but then when people ask you in interviews, how do you feel about the civil rights movement, you don't say nothing. Yeah. So I understand there's some celebrities who are like, oh, I don't talk about politics. But at this day and age, you have to say something in 2023. Yeah.
In 2023, I feel like celebrities are much more obliged to speak towards a cause. Like back in the day, it was if you're a singer, if you're an athlete, you do those things. Like the Martin Luther Kings and the politicians and all of those guys, they're the people that are going to be speaking about issues. But now in this age where everybody has a platform, like you didn't really get to know what, you know, Dolly Parton was thinking back in the day. Yeah. Unless somebody asked her specifically in an interview and you know, read or heard about what she said. Whereas now it's like, oh, why don't you speak on this? Because you're supposed to be in line with this community or that community. And it's like, yeah, so they had it rough.
Right. And so she tried to speak on it through her art form, through her writing, the best way that she could. But she was vocal about women not playing the victim. She didn't want them to, you know, take it sitting down. She really wanted women to be vocal and speak up. And so Dolly, people in the documentary said that she kind of mastered how to be a woman and succeed in this business without making a man feel bad. And honestly, that's kind of how it goes in the industry. It's like you could be a female rapper, you could be a female artist, but don't step over the men. Yeah. This is a men's game. And so she was loved by everybody because she made everybody feel included. She made everybody feel welcome. She used to, you know, laugh with folks on set or you know, move the crowd. And so she always made everybody feel included. That way she wasn't like hurting anybody's feelings.
And that was my red flag. Like Dolly, literally, everybody loved Dolly. And
how is that a red flag?
I know it's a red flag because I'm like, I can't imagine what she's actually going through.
Yeah.
Like, it has to be hard to please the misogynistic males that you may have to work with, but also represent and make women feel like, you know, you're speaking for them as well.
Yeah.
So like that was a red flag to me. Like, how was she able to do this for so long?
Right.
Like,
and I just feel like it really just goes to show the kind of poise that she has. Like you said, that you're able to like juggle all this with so much grace. We never really had too many Dolly Parton scandals or anything throughout her career. And so during this time, you know, it's the late 60s, she had a couple top songs, but it was really the Porter Wagner show that really boosted her career. And she learned a lot from just working with the professional musicians on that set. It was kind of like American Bandstand or like Soul Train. It was like the country version of that. Because like Josh said, it's still early days of TV. They don't have much to watch. So if you enjoy country music, you're going to put on this channel and it's going to be on for hours. And you're going to see Dolly Parton singing because she just joined the show.
Yeah.
And so it was Dolly's song, The Bridge, from her 1968 album, Just Because I'm a Woman. This song was about a teenage girl committing suicide. And they talked about in this documentary how songs like this just go to show that most country songs are pretty dark. They can be pretty sad. They're pretty tragic. They're all, I'm sad and I miss I'm going back to my home in my truck where I wanna. Like, so that's exactly what this song really shocked everybody because it was about suicide in 1968. So it was a really big deal then.
Yeah, back then in the, you know, in that part of the country, people Bible thumping. So that definitely probably ruffled some feathers. So by 1974, this is still pretty early in Dolly's career. And I didn't realize she was this, you know, no offense, but I didn't realize she was this old. She was such a young, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, young soul.
So she's been on the Porter Wagner show at this point for 7 years now. So very experienced. At this point, this is, I guess, kind of like a, what do you call it?
Residency.
A residency, you know what I'm saying? So she does this singing duo. And she was like a huge asset to his records. Like, she was bringing in crowds.
I think that's a big deal. Like, your show didn't pop before Dolly joined.
And y'all know how dudes in the music industry can be. Like, you know, they might be cool with you selling out the concerts, but he low-key wondering, well, are the people here for me or are they here for Dolly? So Dolly was getting more fan mail than Porter and didn't need his coaching anymore. So now this is where the fighting starts. So like this is kind of where you see everything.
I was like, yeah, thank you so much for this cute little job at first.
So get this. Dolly writes, I will always love you because she was trying to make a break from Porter in her own words. I appreciate you and I wish you well, but I gotta go. Right? And then Whitney Houston will record the song 20 years later. And this is dope to me. Because looking at her on this guy's show, it's just like videos of her standing still, like beautiful voice, beautiful performance. But I had no idea she wrote this song first, and then Whitney Houston later recorded it. And they actually said Elvis approached her or asked or inquired about the song, but she didn't sell it to Elvis.
Yeah.
And this is back in the fucking, you know.
So that just goes to show people wanted her writing. People wanted her songwriting.
That's like if Drake were to say, hey, I want this beat, and somebody says no. Like Elvis was that level of, to kind of make it real, but then she ended up giving it to Whitney Houston, and you know Elvis. Elvis couldn't have did what Whitney did.
Baby, I'm sorry, but
that little fat, you know what I'm saying?
They showed Dolly singing it like, and I will always love you.
And it was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
And it was country.
But we know what Whitney did to that John.
And
yes.
Whitney. Woo! Lord have mercy. So she quotes, I write because I want to. I write because I have to. I love to. That kind of reminds me of Snoop's thing. I don't do it because I want to. I do it because I got to. So, like, this is what I was touching on earlier. Like, she's really passionate. Like, she feels like she has to do this.
Yeah.
And she's really called. And she's making business moves as a woman in this industry. And, you know, ruffling the feathers of the men around her. But, like, she's unstoppable. She's
and I'm
a
just
machine
thinking she probably still gets paid to this day when they play that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was the business move. Because they even said that. You know, at the time it didn't seem smart, but when she sold it to Whitney and it had the success that it did, Dolly owns it. Or, you know, she's the writer, so she gets a cut of those royalties. Finally, she left the show and started her solo career with a band mostly made up of her family members. Now, this is what I love. Because now she's like, you know what? I used this opportunity to get the you know, the recognition and the spotlight that I deserve. Now let me go back and bring people that I know to do this thing with me so I can do it the way I want to do it. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm where I need to be, let me start doing things my way. And I didn't know that she was that independent again. So,
and I hope Porter wasn't salty about it. I think they said that he was like kind of salty about it. But
yeah, he was salty. He was definitely salty. Like,
yeah. I mean, but at the end of the day, she helped his career also.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, crossing over to pop was the goal.
I think that's everybody's goal, right?
Yeah, I even told my boys earlier this week, like, don't y'all be mad at me when I get the opportunity to cross over to pop. I'm crossing.
Do a little song with T Swift.
I would. T Swift, if you hear this, email us. I got work for you. Oh crossing over to the pop was the goal. Jolene was probably the first cover song of hers.
Jolene.
I didn't even I heard that song before in the movie, but like that was like her hit.
That was a good crossover,
which was basically about her husband, or not. I don't know if it was her husband specifically.
She was talking to the woman who was cheating on her man with her man, but
more so attacking the woman, not attacking the man. So that was interesting. So Jolene became her second solo #1 for the country charts, which is major. This is after she's doing the thing independently with her family. So she may have sounded hillbilly, but she was bright and beautiful. So like people wanted to know like worldwide who this entertainer was, because like she's just so invigorating. And she's kind of touching on things that other artists in her shoes aren't really touching on.
Right.
So
nobody was writing a song about suicide.
Exactly. So as like her music career kind of like blew up, she wanted to spread her wings. Like now she's going to get into movies, acting, whatever she can get her hands on. And she quoted, "I love expressing myself any way I feel like."
That could be anything. Art, movies, singing, writing.
Today I want to act. I'm going to act. Like, who's going to stop me? You know what I mean? Like I love
and I think that kind of goes back to the whole just wanting. She wanted to be a star. That's it.
Yeah.
She didn't care how.
Yeah, I get that, and I respect it, because if you're creative, there's multiple ways you can show that. And she caught that way before social media, and so she was really, really a trailblazer. Her first hit single was written by someone else, which goes to show she knows a good song when she hears it, even if she didn't write it. Yeah,
that's what I meant. Like, she didn't care how she got to it. Let's get to the money. If y'all wrote it, you wrote it, who cares?
But that's how you know when you're really gifted at something, because it's not just, you got a good voice. You even know who to call on. Like, oh, you know what? I'll sing that song somebody wrote for me because I can put our two visions together. And,
Yeah.
So it's just so much respect I have, I just can't say enough. I'm sorry.
If I was her, I would have been salty for giving up I Will Always Love You, but I guess she's not, because like we said, her attitude was, I don't care who sings it. But me, I would have been like, nah, I'm keeping this for myself.
And Whitney sung that. Like,
she did.
Like, that song can make you cry. Like, if I wrote that song and Whitney sung it, I would be like, wow, like, I wrote this beautiful song.
The fact that Dolly got to outlive Whitney and got to witness that.
Wow. Yeah,
R.I.P. Whitney.
That's actually crazy. So she didn't want to be like everybody else, which means she wasn't fashionable to people. She wore wigs.
Not with all them bedazzled clothes.
Very glammy. She knew people made fun of her and was aware she could switch it up at any time, but she didn't. Like, she was very,
real.
prideful, and she loved who she was. And it's kind of crazy because things kind of caught up to her.
Yeah, now people did like the big hair in the early 2000s. The boob jobs, of course.
Even like the 80s, which was after. Yeah. This is like, we still in the 70s at this point.
Yeah, maybe she was before her time with the bedazzle and the.
She was. The fake boobs and all of that. Like,
we keep going back to the boobs because they even talked about it in the documentary. Like, it just looked like her boobs were always big from the beginning, but now she got some good boobs on.
I don't know when she like had the inserts or whatever, but like, she wasn't even like. There's interviews where. Women are supposed to be reserved back then, very, humble and, and she's like, I think she said something like, they said the house caught on fire because one of my bras.
Oh, yeah.
It would have took 2 days to put out my bra if it caught on fire.
That's exactly
like
the
she was funny.
That's exactly the perfect quote I meant about not getting too political, because I think they had asked her about like, what do you think about the women's rights? She was like, well, I'm not going to go out there and burn my bra because it'll take the whole fire department to put it out.
Exactly.
So it's like she's kind of touching on it, but she's not.
So, her brand will basically always forever be the backwoods Barbie.
Yeah.
So I love that. That's hilarious.
But like you said, how could she keep that up for decades? I want to know what her real hair better be taken care of under all the wigs.
I just hope nothing crazy comes out about like Dolly, like because it does seem like a lot. You know, it does seem like a lot.
So later in her career, we're basically in like 1977 at this point. She has an album called Here You Come Again, and the song Me and Little Andy is again a sad like song about she comes across a little girl and her puppy who have a drunk father, abandoned mother, and then they die in their sleep, but they get to meet again in heaven. Yeah. These are the songs that Dolly is writing.